Hey guys, welcome back to Fantasy Tip. My name is Julian and this is the Drops episode for week 2 of the fantasy hockey season. Now I don't have anything that's too hot of a take here because there are some guys that I've only seen play one game so far, so I'm not going to dock them too many points for one bad game. We're going to have to see a little bit. In week 3 I'll probably have a little bit better of an idea on who should be dropped from your team. One thing to note, guys, is I don't like to repeat players on a week-to-week basis, so you're not going to see a whole lot of guys that were on this list last week back on this list this week. Before we get started, guys, please leave a like, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and if you do want to take your support to the next level, the link to my Patreon is in the description below. Let's jump right into it now. Let's start with some forwards that you should consider dropping from your team. And first on the list is Tanner Jeannot, 61% roster, and I have a star beside his name for this simple reason. If you're in a hits league where hits count as points or in a cast league where you need hits, you're keeping Tanner Jeannot. If you're in any kind of league that doesn't count hits at all, he's not someone I'm super high on because he is a third liner and as of right now is not scoring any points, and that's why I would drop him in those types of leagues. And then I have Jacob Voracek of the Columbus Blue Jackets, 34% rostered, playing on the second line. And while I don't hate that deployment, he's someone that I don't think has that much fantasy value. Last year, he ended up as a 200 and something best fantasy player. And honestly, I don't hate keeping Voracek, but if there is a stud out there on your waiver wire that Voracek, you're like, I don't know if I should drop Voracek, you should drop Voracek for that guy because he's probably going to be taken by somebody else. Then I have Nino Niederreiter of the Nashville Predators. Started off the season obviously very strong in his first 2 games, scored 3 goals. But guys, that's not going to continue. And while he should have himself a pretty decent year playing on the Preds second line, he's not someone that you definitely, absolutely need to own in fantasy. And then I have Anders Lee of the New York Islanders. Had a super disappointing year last year, and I'm not super high on him this year as well. In his first game, didn't do a whole lot. And he's not someone that I'm expecting to really do that much this year for fantasy, so he can be dropped as well. And then Marco Rossi, who's on the Wild, is only 10% rostered. Unfortunately, is playing on their 4th line right now, so he's not going to do a whole lot until they change his deployment, if they even change his deployment. So for now, he's not someone that has a lot of value, and I would only keep him in keeper leagues. Jumping into defenseman now, and first on the list is Owen Power of the Buffalo Sabres, 88% rostered. And honestly, guys, I'm really not a big fan of Owen Power in fantasy this year. I'm a big fan of him as a player, but as long as he's not getting that top power play time in Buffalo, he doesn't really have a whole lot of appeal as a fantasy player and definitely should not be owned in 88% of leagues. Then I have Radko Gudas, and once again, there's a star beside it because he's only someone that I would drop if I'm not in a league that has hits. He's 60% rostered right now, and from my experience, 60% of leagues probably don't all have hits in them. So if you don't have hits in your league and you're holding on to Radko Gudas, please don't. He's not going to do anything for you. Then I have Jake Sanderson of the Ottawa Senators, and as long as he's not seeing PP1 time because of Shabbat being healthy, he's not very valuable in fantasy. His peripherals are not that crazy, and because of that, Jake Sanderson is not someone I'm super high on this year. Then I have Sean Durzi of the LA Kings. Had a decent game in his first game, scored an assist, but he had a very costly giveaway that made him get benched in the second game of the season. So if he's going to be healthy scratched by the LA Kings, he's not someone that I'm super high on owning this year for fantasy. And as long as Doughty's healthy, Durzi doesn't really have a lot of value anyway. And then last but not least, I have Samuel Girard of the Colorado Avalanche, 23% rostered. And he's someone that really had a bad year last year. And even though he's getting some PP2 time this year in Colorado, I don't think it's going to be enough to make him worth really anything in fantasy this year. And to me, he's a drop outside of the very, very deepest leagues. Should not be owned in 23% of leagues though. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. Please leave a like, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. And if you do want to take your support to the next level, the link to my Patreon is in the description below. Thanks so much, guys, and I'll catch you in the next episode of Fantasy Tech.